Welcome to Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw, where we keep it raw, real, and unfiltered. I'm Zachyra Rodriguez, a trauma specialist and marriage psychotherapist, and this is a space where we dive deep into the messy, yet beautiful and often difficult parts of life. Here we challenge ourselves to face our fears and dig deeper into self-discovery. I'm no newbie. I've navigated many rocky roads and consider myself a recovered traumaholic. Life hasn't been easy, but I truly believe that everything happens for a cause greater than ourselves. Whether you're navigating with grief or grappling with trauma, healing from attachment injuries, or working on your marriage, we're here to unpack it all. No sugarcoating, just honest conversations about the struggles we face and the growth that comes from them. You matter, you are loved, even before your existence, and you're created to do great things. So grab a seat, my friend, take a long, deep breath, and let's get real together. So let's begin. Welcome to Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw. So I'm so excited because this is officially the very first episode of this podcast. Those that know me, I've been talking about this for the longest. I've been talking about, I want to say maybe a little bit over 3 years ago. So I can't believe that I'm actually saying this, but it's officially the very first episode of the podcast. So let me see, how am I feeling today? I would say I'm feeling nervous, excited, definitely blessed, very joyful, and just expecting to see, what God is going to do in this setting. This moment has been a long time coming. So I'm just so excited about it. So first things first, I just want to be very real with you, right? This podcast is not perfect, but one thing that I can say that it is going to be real. It's going to be honest. And this is a space where we're just going to dive deep into the messiness of life, the things that people are very uncomfortable talking about, and we're very surprised when we hear other people talking about certain things. And then we're like, oh my gosh, I'm also going through that. So I'm not an alien or anything else. Basically, we all go through the same stuff, but nobody wants to talk about it. And if we don't talk about it, then how do we heal from it? Would you agree? So if you're coming here expecting a polished or Instagram filtered story, this is not me. Wrong podcast. Because here we're going to keep it real and raw. And that's the reason for the name, right? It's healing in the raw. So I do have to say that some of the topics that we will be talking about, they may be triggering. And if you're not ready to take in certain parts, that's okay. The most important thing is that you take care of yourself. That's always going to be the most important thing. So this is going to be a space where I'm going to be sharing my journey. I'm going to be sharing my journey about grief, about trauma, about the long ongoing processes of healing that I've had to go through and I'm still going through. And some of the truth that pretty much like people, they just like stay away from, right? I'm excited also that we're going to be bringing in conversations with other people and they're going to be sharing their own stories of survival and their faith and resilience and the things that they have gone through, and one of the truth is that, I call myself a recovering traumaholic. I've lived years and years there has been so many layers of trauma, but I'm still here. I'm still standing. And that says a lot, right? And I want this podcast to be very interactive. I want to be able to hear from you. I want to be able to hear your questions and your own struggles and even things that you would like for us to talk about here. And if we're going to be doing this together, you may probably need to know a little bit about who's the mic, who's this person talking. So my name is Zachyra Rodriguez. I know that's a lot, but most people do call me Zashi or Sashi. I'm a bilingual licensed psychotherapist and I specialize in trauma, grief, anxiety, depression, and relationships. I myself, I've been married for over 32 years. Can you believe it? I've known my husband for 34 years. I'm a mom of 3 and I have a bonus daughter. But above all that, I'm the daughter of the King. And one of my favorite scriptures that has carried me through so much of the experiences that I myself have gone through has been 2 Corinthians 1, 3-4. And this is what it says. It says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. And it's such a comforting scripture that God Himself comforts us. And He's the Father of compassion, and He's the one that has given me all of my comfort, even in those moments when I have felt that I could not continue. So it's not just the words, it's my story. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my Lord Jesus Christ. So I do have to give Him all the honor and the glory. And He has been the one, because there has been many, many times that I remember waking up and not being able to just move. And I would just say, Lord, you're going to have to get me through, because I just don't know any other way. So that's my belief system. That's my anchor. So yeah. So what else? In terms of what do I like? I love the outdoors. I love walking in nature. I love my family. I have 4 older brothers, an older sister, 3 younger sisters. Listen, what can I say? I've been blessed to have so many siblings from both my paternal side and my maternal side. And I'm not complaining about it. I mean, it's been such a blessing just to have a large family, and just to be able to have the relationship that I have with all of them. It's definitely something that I don't take lightly. So growing up, so I am originally from Panama, and Panama City, Panama. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. And what started as a 1-month vacation, my aunt went to Panama. She said, we're going to go to the US. And I remember her bringing me to the US, and I was only coming for a month. Yes, only a month. And after that month was over, she said to me, do you want to stay? I said, nope, I am ready to go back home. And she said, well, the snow is coming soon. I'm sure you want to see it. And here was the issue that she said to me: when your parents call, you need to let them know that you're going to see the snow. You want to see the snow. And that is not what I did, actually. What ended up happening is that my parents called, and then they had asked me, are you ready to go home? And I said, yes, I do want to come. I do want to go home. That was a big, big mistake, because after that call, when I tell you, my body was beaten. And that was one of the very first signs of the beginning of, I would say, like my first recognized trauma. Because during those 7 years that I stayed in the United States, in Philly, there was a lot of neglect. There was a lot of abuse, physically, emotionally, sexually. Even my identity was pretty much ripped apart. I wasn't allowed to speak Spanish. If I did, I got punished with a belt. My daughter calls it that I was kidnapped for 7 years. And even with that, even as I say that right now, I didn't really see it that way. And even every single time that I grapple with that thought, that how was it that I was literally kidnapped, but I didn't know it, and until my daughter said a few years ago, she was like, Mom, you were kidnapped. And just hearing it in her voice and through her eyes, that's when it, like, reality hit me. That's what it was. And that was the truth. And the saddest part is that it was my truth. And I lived through those 7 years, being in that environment, being punished, being told that I was a bad kid, that I wasn't good for nothing. And after a while, you kind of start to believe that, and it becomes your identity. And that was rough. That was a tough time. I remember being isolated. I remember being left home, telling me that I didn't smile enough, I wasn't good enough. And it was a moment of reflection. It was a moment of just trying to figure out who I was. I spoke Spanish, but I needed to learn English, and it was tough. It was a tough moment. And on the outside, everyone saw me. with my long plaits and pretty outfits, as my sister would tell me. But on the inside, there was so much sadness. And during that time, my father, he came, I want to say when I was about 10 years old, and he came with my stepmom. And they ended up living at my home with my grandmother for about that time, for 2 years. And my dad didn't know anything about it. My daddy was oblivious. He wasn't aware because after they arrived, a lot of the abuse, of course, stopped. So I remember my dad, things were not going well with him. And, he decided to move back to Panama. And he asked me, he said, you know, would you be willing or do you want to go back to Panama? And I remember that moment. I started jumping up and down. I was like, yes, I want to go without any hesitation, without thinking. Like he looked at me and he was so shocked because he was not expecting that. Mind you, I'm now very Americanized. I don't speak Spanish. I'm very into the American culture. But when I tell you I was ready to run, I didn't know where I was running to. I didn't remember Panama. I didn't know anything. I didn't know who lived back in Panama. But all I know is that I was ready for a change. So I was ready for a change. And again, I didn't know where I was going. And I do know that I needed to get out of there. So I had to learn a new language. I had to reconnect with my mom and my siblings who didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish. And then I had to try to rediscover and search for my identity. I want to say that was so, so difficult because I don't think we realize the things that kids go through from one home to another, from having to adapt to a new culture. And, just the thought of having to reconnect with my mom and my siblings and just trying to fit in that word, just trying to fit into a culture I had been ripped away from. And the culture was mine, but it felt so, so foreign, so foreign. And I pushed through, I overachieved, I excelled, I had to learn English. I had to learn Spanish. And I learned it in about 8 months. But there was a lot of, successes, but in the process, there was a lot of pain because as a result of not being able to communicate with my mom and with that side of the family, there was a lot of hurt and pain also that she felt as a result of that. And that was tough. That was very, very difficult because imagine not having your daughter for so many years and then all of a sudden you're so excited because you're going to have her back. But I didn't know her. I didn't know my siblings on that side of the family. And I didn't want to live with her and my stepdad. I remember I felt like a pit in my stomach. Every time my daddy would be like, hey, you need to go back and you need to, go live with your mom. And he did it more for my sake. However, I was not comfortable at all. And, years went by, I continued living with my daddy and I continued to become this overachiever. But you can take away all on the outside, all the glamour and the beauty. However, on the inside, I was crumbling. I was angry. And that's how my trauma was pretty much, presented. And I was so, so broken, but it was because of that unresolved trauma. It was a monster that I didn't even know that I needed to face. And trauma is complicated and it comes in so many different ways and forms. And many times when you see people that they're angry, the first thing that people say, oh my gosh, they have an anger problem. Oh, they need anger management. But maybe it's not anger. Maybe it's something called unresolved trauma or complicated trauma or trauma that they have not even been able to address. So those anger issues that sometimes we see that actually present themselves and people, it's really trauma. Most of the time that's talking. And because of the fact that I did not have a chance to process that trauma, and like many of us, we don't process the trauma. For me, I actually tried to cover it up with perfectionism, with success, doing everything right, following the rules. Nobody had to tell me to do my homework. Nobody had to tell me that I needed to be prepared for school the next day, and as a result of that ugly trauma that was living inside of me, there was this little girl that was screaming for help. It impacted my marriage when I got married. For some reason, I just had this idea that my husband was going to save me. I laugh about it today, but I thought he was going to save me. Like Cinderella, that prince and the rescuer, and I just thought that he was going to come on this white, beautiful horse and he was going to save me. He was going to protect me. He was going to fulfill all of my needs, not his needs, okay? My needs. And just like Cinderella, right? And the end of the story, what does it say, right? And they lived happily ever after, right? But when you really think about it, like the only person that can save us and the only person that could heal us is God. But I placed a lot of that on him, and looking back, and hopefully, one of our podcasts, I'll definitely talk about that in relationships and everything else. But I was so traumatized that I didn't even know I was traumatized. My family didn't know that I was traumatized. They just thought I had an anger issue. Okay, because they would tell me to do stuff and I would just look at them like they were crazy. And you know that faces that sometimes people would actually, like when someone says something and you look at them, but you don't have to say much. You just look at them, and the way you look at them, it kind of like speaks volumes. That was me. I spoke volumes with my facial expression. And even to the point that I was so angry, even up until my 20s. And I remember being, after having, I believe I had my first son already, and I'm on the bus, and the bus driver is telling me, get off the bus. Like, actually, no, he told me to move over because we needed more space. And Sashi was not in the mood of moving over. So I looked at him and I said, there is no more space. It was those dollar vans. We're in Brooklyn, New York. If you're from Brooklyn or you've been in Brooklyn, you know the deal. Get on the dollar vans and you got to squeeze in. Okay, there was no more squeezing in. I don't know where we were squeezing into because there was no squeezing anything in. And he told me to move over. I told him there was no space. He got upset. I got upset. His van though, but I got upset. And I was not having it. I wasn't having it at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, guess what? I was so angry, so upset. And he told me, he said, okay, you don't want to move over? Then get off the bus. And I refused to get off the bus. Okay. So now I'm being defiant. I refused to get off the bus. And now I'm mad. I'm angry at him. How dare you tell me to move over? So now he's telling me to get out his van. And the people literally agreed with him. Can you believe that? They agreed with him. So they told me also to get off the van because, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody wants to be late for work. And what do you think I did? After I cursed them out, told them off, I was so upset. And I got kicked off the bus. Can you believe that? I got kicked off the bus. How insane is that? The dollar van. But those were just some of the signals that many times we don't even see. But you may know someone that may be facing, having anger challenges, and maybe there's layers of trauma that they never even processed through. So those are just some of, you're going to be hearing, stories about me, and, because we do carry these incredible, invisible scars and these incredible emotions that sometimes we don't even know how to deal with them. And I know that, at times we may be smiling and on the outside, but we're falling apart on the inside. But I do know that there's also hope. So the podcast, it's not just going to be about me, but it's also for you, the ones that are listening right now, and the ones that feel that there is no hope. I'm here to tell you that there is hope. There has, as I said earlier, there has been many, many moments in my life that I have been through so many different devastating events that I've gone through. You know, I've lost my brother, I lost my daddy, you know, the man who showed me what it was really to, what love was, you know, to surviving a really, really bad car accident at the age, I was in my early 20s. I was 22 years old and I was 8 months pregnant coming back from my baby shower. So if life has been lifing, yes, it's been lifing. It's been hard. And nothing can actually compare to losing my firstborn son at the age of 24 years old. This was actually 8 years ago. And when I tell you that that loss, it has changed my life forever. My world just paused. It's like everything just paused. And all I remember is silence. It's like deafening silence. And the saddest part of all this is like seeing people move on. And I was just left to pick up the pieces. It was messy. I always tell people that it was like someone walked into my home, flipped it upside down, and then said to me, okay, Sashi, go ahead and fix it now. And it was in steps that I started to recover, and I started to recover. And I am here today to tell you that there is hope. So if you are going through a hardship, if you're in a hard season and you feel like giving up, and you wonder if life is ever going to make sense again, I can definitely tell you with all the might in my heart and my soul, trust me, it will. It will take some time because I don't want to lie to you. It's a day by day process. It's one day you messing up, one day you crying, another day you're laughing. It comes in waves. It's dusting off the aches and pain, but still continuing to push through. And that's why I'm here. That's what I do, what I do. That's why I love working with people, just to see their healing process and the things that they go through. Because healing doesn't happen in the pretty filtered parts of life. They just don't. Healing actually happens in the raw. So if you're in a dark place, please, please know, hold on to your faith. You know, your life has purpose, even if it doesn't feel like that right now. So I want to encourage you to get messy. I want to be able to heal with you. And I just want to thank you for being here with me on this very first episode of Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw. So if something today resonated with you, I want you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. I want you to follow me on Instagram and send me a message. All this information is going to be in the links below. And I'll truly, truly love to hear your story and what topics you want us to explore together. So I want us to keep talking. I want us to keep it real. I want us to keep healing. So mis amigos, this is only the beginning. So welcome again to Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw.